The War Council chamber aboard the Eclipsion, flagship of the Zarnathi. Empire gleamed with cold, sterile light. Ancient stone met future alloy. Symbol of power rooted in a million years of galactic domination. Seated in a crescent of high command chairs, the Empress's most ruthless generals stared down at the lone figure standing defiantly in the center of the hall. General Karl of the Black Tusk Legion. He was old for a Zarnathi. His dark blue skin was dulled with age, and the ridges of his horned skull bore cracks from wars fought in star systems humans hadn't even mapped. His voice, though growly, echoed like thunder. "I plead for the last time," he said, fists clenched behind his back. "Leave the humans alone." A silence hung thick in the air, then laughter, low, cruel, dismissive. Grand Strategist Velen clicked his serrated jaw and leaned forward. "You plead for the apes." Karl didn't flinch. "They are not apes. They are something else, something dangerous. I have seen them fight on Vulararis. I have seen their minds twist. Victory from chaos. They are unpredictable, resistant. Their rage, their compassion, their stubborn will. It makes them unlike anything we've conquered. You speak of them like they are gods," Empress Sahari said coldly, her crimson eyes fixed on him. "They bleed, they die, they fall like any other." "They bleed," Karl admitted, "but they learn when they bleed. They evolve. They fight harder. We may crush them now, but the moment they rise again, they will burn 10 times hotter, and this time they know we're watching. Enough." The Empress spat. "You've gone soft. Perhaps too many cycles among the primitives dulled your senses. We will erase their kind from the stars like we did to the Thriani, like we did to the Jur." Karl's jaw tightened. He knew what happened to those civilizations. Their ruins still floated in dead systems. Warning to those who thought resistance meant survival, but humans, they didn't just resist, they adapted. The Zarnati had first made contact with Earth 30 years ago. It was supposed to be a reconnaissance operation, study, analyze, infiltrate, but something went wrong. One of their covert teams was discovered, and instead of fear, Earth launched a coordinated global retaliation, not just military, scientific, economic, digital. Within 3 Earth years, humanity had reverse-engineered Zarnathi tech and launched their first defense fleet. It was crude, but it worked, and when a Zarnathi dreadship was destroyed over Mars' orbit, that was the moment the Empire should have pulled back, rethought, negotiated. But arrogance had always been there. Weakness. Karl remembered the face of the human commander who led that Mars assault. Captain Nia Arden, dark-skinned, fiery, and commanding with a voice that burned. Through the chaos, she should have died. That day, instead, she cracked open a ship 5 times the size of her fleet and walked away with barely a scar. "She's coming," Karl muttered under his breath. "What was that, traitor?" Velgen snarled. Carol raised his voice. "I said she's coming. Humanity is coming. And when they do, they won't come in peace, they'll come with fury." The Empress rose from her throne, draped in obsidian armor etched with the bloodlines of annihilated races. "Then let them. This time we send the full force of the Empire." Karl bowed his head, not in submission, but mourning. "Then you've signed our death." 2 guards stepped forward. Velgen hissed, "Take him to the cells of silence. Strip him of rank. He will rot while Earth burns." As the guards seized him, Karl didn't fight. There was no point. The Empire had made its choice. He only hoped Humanity would make them pay for it, as the chamber doors sealed behind him, he whispered almost too softly to hear. "Forgive me, Captain Arden," I tried. Nia Arden stood on the outer balcony of the Interplanetary Command in New London, staring at the reddish glow of Mars in the night sky. It hovered like a distant wound, still visible, still burning. She didn't wear a uniform anymore. The medals meant nothing now. Not after what they'd done, the day the Zarnathi dreadship exploded above the Martian atmosphere was the day humanity stopped looking up with wonder and started looking up with fury. Her calm implant blinked blue. "Commander Arden, Fleet Assembly. Protocols are ready. We await your mark," came the voice of Director Usef. She didn't answer right away. She never rushed her silence. The stars had a way of whispering truths that men in war rooms would never understand. Finally, she tapped her neck and said, "Prep Phase 1. We launch the test. Strike in 48 hours. "Yes, Commander." Nia walked back inside, past the guard post where two young soldiers, barely 20, stood to attention. One was missing his right arm, the other had cybernetic eyes. Both casualties of the skirmishes of Europa. She nodded to them, not out of obligation but respect. They were the new generation, born in defiance, bred in shadow. Their childhood was made of news alerts, refugee camps, and orbital drills. They never knew peace. In the war room, holograms lit the dark like ghost flames. Earth's defense grid, the Martian colonies, Europa's wreckage, the scattered remains of Neptune's fleet. It was a map of pain. Their ships are massing at the edges of the Althura corridor, said Admiral Lin, tapping at the stars. Scouts report at least 3 dozen destroyers. They're preparing a full push. "What about Carl?" Nia asked, folding her arms. The room fell quiet. Admiral Lin hesitated. "Removed. Internal sources say he's been stripped of rank and imprisoned. They're calling him a sympathizer." Nia laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Of course they are." He was the only one of them who listened. General Ramos grunted. "He didn't listen. Arden, he spared you once. That doesn't make him a saint. He still led the raid on Enceladus." She shot him a glance. "And who turned Enceladus into a weapons lab, you think?" "The Zarnathi attacked a science station. For fun. We were experimenting on live alien prisoners down there." Silence again. She continued, "Carl's not a friend, but he's not blind. He saw what we could do. What we will do if pushed." "You think he tried to stop the Empire?" Ramos asked. "I know he did." Lin shook her head. "Doesn't matter now. The Empire won't back down, and we're still 20 years behind them in fleet tech. But we're ahead in tactics," Nia said. "And we're ahead in one more thing." Ramos raised an eyebrow. "What?" "Desperation." Back on the lunar base underground, Facility 6, the lights flickered as engineers rushed through the metallic corridors. Power cores hummed beneath the floor. Radiation shields pulsed. The center chamber, they were building something that shouldn't exist, a weapon not even Earth's council had approved. Yet Project Red Veil, 2 black obelisks stood tall, each humming with unstable energy. Between them, a gravitational singularity, tiny, barely contained, rotated inside a transparent field. A warp space around it bent light and made you nauseous if you looked too long. Dr. Ara Mendes oversaw the project. Her hands were shaking. They always did when she got too close. She didn't believe in gods. But if they existed, she was sure they'd call this blasphemy. "Is the containment holding?" asked Nia, as she stepped into the chamber. Security guards at her side, for now. Ara said, "But if this breaches, we won't just lose the moon, we'll lose the damn solar system." Nia didn't blink. "Then we don't let it breach." "You understand what this is?" Ara asked, pushing her hair behind her ear. "This is stolen tech, Arden. We copied it from a crashed Zarnathi artifact. It wasn't meant to be used like this. They called it an extinction drive. And now it's ours," Nia said coldly. "Because we don't get to choose anymore. We either hold them back or we get wiped out." Ara looked at her, eyes full of a thousand ethical screams. She had no time left to voice. She just nodded and said, "We'll be ready." That night Nia walked the old quarter of Earth's new London, silent, broken, still half rebuilt. Graffiti covered the walls. Slogans like, "Burn the stars and we remember Mars." Children played with rusted drone parts. Old war vets begged. Near broken service droids, no one lived untouched anymore. An old woman stopped her at a corner. "You're her," the woman whispered. "One from the Mars ship." Nia nodded once. "My son died there," the woman said. Her voice wasn't angry, just tired. "He was only a technician. Not even a soldier, just fixed communications." "I'm sorry," Nia replied quietly. "Did it matter?" the woman asked, eyes wet. "Did any of it matter?" Nia looked up at the stars. "They're still afraid of us." She said that's why it mattered. Inside her personal quarters, she replayed the intercepted message again. It was old now, weeks old, but it haunted her. It was in broken Zarnathi dialect, translated through 5 layers of linguistic AI. "Leave them, I beg you. If you keep pressing, they will burn your empire from the inside out. The humans, they are not like the others. They don't know when to surrender. They mistake pain for purpose. They weaponize grief. They find God in war. And once they're on fire, they don't stop burning." Carl's voice, she played it again too. Days later, the first retaliation strike launched from the dark side of the moon. A stealth fleet of 47 ships, half of them automated, warped into the Althera corridor and attacked the outer supply line of the Empire's staging fleet. It wasn't meant to win, it was meant to send a message, and it worked. By the time Earthstrike returned, they destroyed 3 supply freighters, 1 mid-class cruiser, and most importantly, jammed their quantum beacon long enough to install a virus in the Empire's fleet systems. The virus didn't shut anything down, that would be too obvious. It made one small change. It translated human audio signals directly into the ears of the Zarnathi command bridge systems. Voices from Earth, war songs, screams, and worst of all, the names of every destroyed human colony, a digital haunting. Across the galaxy, Zarnathi officers woke to voices they didn't understand, repeating one message again and again. "We are coming, and we do not forgive." Inside his prison, General Carl heard the alarms blaring, then silence, then a voice, human, female, familiar. "General," the voice said, "I hope you're listening." Carl stood, heart racing. "I told you we'd come," said Captain Nia. "Arden, you tried to help us once, so I'm returning the favor." He stared at the ceiling. No speakers, no visible tech, just her voice in his mind. "You're not the only one who understands how the Empire thinks," she said. "You Tried to warn them. They didn't listen. Outside his cell, the walls began to glow with red light. Now we teach them what happens when humanity burns. The walls of the prison pulsed red as the emergency siren shrieked through the depths of the Eclipsion, deep beneath the command decks. The cells of silence had not seen active breach protocols in over a century. Nothing had ever reached this far. Until now. General Carl stood silently in the center of his cell, eyes fixed on the door as a power surged behind the reinforced walls. He could hear it in the distance. Blaster fire, the whoosh of pressurized doors slamming shut, the unmistakable boom of a detonation far too close to be coincidence. They were here, humanity. He should have felt fear or rage or shame, but all he felt was a strange, burning certainty. They had arrived too fast. The Eclipsion was the pride of the Empire, a ship the size of a continent, a floating fortress. For centuries its name alone had silenced rebellions, but now, for the first time in his long service, its heart was under siege, and the Empire had no idea how. He turned as a small spark of light flickered at the far end of his cell. It danced in midair, like a floating ember. Then slowly it began to take shape, a hologram, human-grade tech. And then her face appeared. Captain Nia Arden, hair tied back tight, jaw tense, eyes full of war. "General," she said. "You still alive?" He stared at the projection. "How are you here?" "We're not," she replied. "Not yet. This is just the ghost, a warning." Carl narrowed his eyes. "You've hacked the Eclipsion?" She nodded once. "Not hacked, infected. You remember the drone wreckage we let you capture on Europa? The one your engineers insisted was primitive." He did. They had laughed at it, called it scrap. No one listened when he said humanity never gave anything away for free. That drone, she continued, was carrying a quantum seed. It's been listening to you for the last 6 months, mapping your protocols, learning your language, feeding your overconfidence. You planted it. We planted hundreds. The hologram began to flicker slightly. The signal was unstable, deliberately unstable. "This is your last chance to choose your side, Carl," she said. "You warned your Empire. They didn't listen, but we did. So here's my offer. Help us get to the command center. Help us shut down the core. And when this ship falls, I'll make sure you're on the right side of history." He didn't respond. Then, as the hologram began to fade, her voice dropped low, almost into a whisper. "They don't see us yet, General. Not really. They still think they're the apex, but they made one mistake." "What mistake?" he asked. "They taught us how to be monsters." Above the Eclipsian's main deck was chaos. Officers barked orders, tactical screens blinked with corrupted data. Life support flickered in half a dozen sections. Entire squads of elite Zarnathi soldiers were being rerouted to defend against nothing. Phantom strikes, false readings, entire wings deployed to chase ghosts. It wasn't a human fleet they were fighting, it was human thinking. The virus was using their pride against them. The more they scrambled to defend, the more vulnerable they became. At the center of it all sat Empress Sahari, her long cloak draped over the edge of her throne, claws twitching with frustration. She had seen uprisings before, seen rebellions rise and fall, but never like this. "Where is the breach coming from?" she demanded. "Everywhere." Her science Officer hissed, mandibles twitching. They are not attacking the ship, they are rewriting it. Get me the fire. Lancers, prepare the inner sanctum. We already did, Empress. They are trapped in Hall 7 by our own defense turrets. The virus locked them in. Sari slammed her claw against the armrest. Humans, disgusting little creatures. Do they think chaos wins wars? It does, came a voice behind her. She turned sharply. A new figure stepped into the light, cloaked in stealth gear. Human by silhouette, her guards raised. Weapons hold, she hissed. Let them speak. The figure stepped closer and pulled back the hood. It was Nia Arden in person. Hello, Your Majesty, she said. With a half smile, you've built a beautiful ship. Be a shame if it imploded. You would dare walk into my throne room alone. I didn't, Nia replied. I walked in with your own defense system holding your doors open. The guards lunged, but too late. From her wrist, Nia triggered a pulse emitter. One burst of blue light and the entire command bridge fell into darkness. Artificial gravity failed. Systems blinked out. The guards floated helpless. The Empress snarled, flailing in Zerog. You think this is victory? You are a child in a viper's den. Nia pulled herself toward the throne, using her boots mag locks to anchor her with each step. No, she said, I'm the fire you let in when you weren't watching. Meanwhile, deep in the prison block, Carl heard the door slide open. It wasn't a guard. It was a human, a young soldier no older than 25, his armor scorched and dented, eyes wild with adrenaline. He aimed a plasma rifle at Carl. Hesitated. You're him, the boy said. The general. I am the boy. Trigger finger twitched. You killed my brother Enceladus, Carl said. Nothing. He remembered that battle. Thousands of human lives lost. I should shoot you, the boy whispered. Carl stepped forward. You should. A long pause, then the rifle lowered. I don't forgive you, the boy muttered. But she said, we need you. Nah, the boy tossed him a communication badge. Take this. She's waiting in the throne room. Go help her burn your gods down. Back on the command deck, Nia activated her suit's beacon and broadcast a short range signal. Red veil clear, she said. Deliver the kiss. Above the Eclipsion, a human dropship uncloaked. It wasn't large. It didn't need to be. From its undercarriage it released a single device, no larger than a coffin. It drifted down through the artificial atmosphere, undetected. When it made contact with the ship's core casing, it latched on, drilled in, and began to pulse. At the same moment, Nia received the signal. Detonation in 6 minutes, came voice. If you're not out by then, I know, Nia replied. Just hold the line. The Empress lunged at her in a rage, claws outstretched, teeth bared, but Nia ducked, rolled, and pulled her sidearm. One shot right between Sahari's eyes. The Empress fell back, stunned but not dead. Her species didn't die that easily. You'll never escape, Sahari growled. Even if this ship falls, we are endless. You are a flicker. Nia leaned in close, whispering, then maybe we're the match that sets the whole empire on fire. Suddenly the doors blew open. Carl stood there, bruised but free. He looked at Nia, then at the Empress, and without hesitation, he walked to the throne and crushed the emergency warp beacon beneath his boot. That was your escape plan, Sahari hissed. He turned to her, face stone cold. No, he said. That was yours. 5 minutes later, Nia and Carl sprinted Through the burning corridors, weaving. Through broken halls and disabled security drones, the countdown ticked. Their ears, 321, 320, 319. They reached. The final hangar, a small shuttle. Awaited human tech Zarnathi alloys. Built from stolen parts, as they took off, the Eclipsean began to crack. Red Veil device was not a bomb in the traditional sense. It didn't explode, it folded. Reality bent around the device, pulling the ship inward, warping its mass, tearing it into a slow, invisible implosion. From the outside, it looked as if the ship simply disappeared, gone. The Empress, the command bridge, the fear. All gone. In the darkness of space, Nia sat in silence inside the shuttle. Blood on her cheek, cuts on her hands. Exhaustion in her bones. Carl sat across from her. You burned your own soul to do this, he said. She nodded. And I'd do it again. He looked out at the stars. You won't stop the Empire with one ship. No, she agreed, but now they know we can reach them, that we're not prey. And what happens next? Nia looked him in the eye. We start the next fire. There were no official broadcasts, no Empire-sanctioned statement, no state funeral, only silence. The Eclipsean, the jewel of the Zarnathi Empire, was gone, not damaged, not hijacked, not floating in some asteroid field waiting to be recovered. Gone. Billion souls across dozens of systems stared at dark screens, wondering how something that colossal, something that old, could simply vanish. Some said it was sabotage, others whispered it was divine punishment. But those closer to the truth knew better. They had heard the human transmission, the one broadcasted into every Zarnathi controlled system less than 20 seconds after the Eclipsean's disappearance. This is for Mars. This is for Enceladus. This is for the colonies you wiped out. While smiling behind your diplomacy, we are not your cattle. We are not your children. We are the storm, and we are just getting started. In the shadowed skies of Zarnath Prime, the capital planet of the Empire, panic, war, 1,000 masks, markets collapsed, protests boiled, dozens of vassal species subjugated for generations began refusing orders. Minor revolts flared up. In places the Zarnathi once ruled with unshakable control, now fear ruled. Instead, inside the Imperial Council chambers, leaders screamed over one another. They must have help from within. How could primitives build a weapon like that? Find their allies, root them out. One voice cut through the noise. They didn't need allies. That's the point. All heads turned towards the speaker, Ambassador Lysier of the Cadron Coalition, a species of crystalline entities who had long served the Empire under threat of extinction. Lysier rarely spoke, and never without calculation. You don't understand what you've done. Lysier continued, his voice like glass scraping steel. You've poked a nest of thinking predators and laughed when they bared their teeth, and now you're bleeding. Watch your words, Ambassador growled. General Thavar, one of the remaining high commanders, you speak of the humans as if they are greater than us. Lysier tilted his shimmering head. They are something different, and you can't rule what you don't understand. Aboard the stolen shuttle, Nia Arden sat at the edge of a rusted cargo container. Her legs numb, her mind burning. They had destroyed the Eclipsean. But victory had no taste, only the faces remained of friends lost, soldiers broken, cities bombed into silence, and Now something even darker was growing. Inside her, the weight of escalation. Carl leaned against the far wall of the shuttle, silent. His armor was cracked. His claws still stained with dried blood. They hadn't spoken in hours. Finally, he broke the silence. You've changed. Nia didn't look up. We all changed. He studied her for a long moment. You were different when I saw you on Mars, younger. You still carried hope. Like it was armor. She gave a bitter laugh. Hope gets you killed in this war. You think you've won something? He asked. She turned toward him, eyes sharp. We broke their spine. You cracked it. He said, they'll heal, and when they do, they'll come for your entire species. With a rage you've never seen. We're counting on it. That stopped him. You want them to retaliate. We want them to overreach, she said. We want them scared, unstable, arrogant. Exactly like they were before we buried their flagship. We bait them into burning more resources, stretching their fleets thin, exposing weaknesses. That's when the real war begins. He exhaled slowly. You're becoming more Zarathi than you realize. Nia leaned back. And you're becoming more human. Elsewhere in the underground cities of Dar's Folly, a border moon long, abandoned by the Empire, a meeting of outlaws, rebels, and disillusioned Zarnathi took place. They called themselves the Shattered Crown. At their center sat a hooded figure, voice masked by a digital filter. Humanity did what none of us could. They made the Empire bleed, the figure said. We've waited for that moment, and now it's time to fan the flames. One of the rebel captains, a four-eyed reptilian from the Thoros system, hissed, we've tried rebellion before. It ends in orbital bombardments, and our children ash in the wind, but this time, said another, there's something different. The humans don't ask for help. They act, they strike, they burn. Then we follow them, the hooded leader said. We strike where they struck. We make it look like Earth has more allies than it does. We turn their fear into war on all fronts. The room agreed, and for the first time in centuries, hope danced like fire, light in the dark corners of the galaxy. Back on Earth, inside a classified military station under the Arctic ice sheet, Director Usef was staring at 3 holograms blinking red, reports coming in from the Empire's outer colonies. His assistant said, Zarnathi losing control of the Zenthar system. Civil war flaring on Draxus. Border colonies refusing to send taxes. Yusef turned toward Nia, who had just stepped into the control chamber. You've made them bleed, he said with awe, and the blood's turning septic. Nia didn't smile. Don't celebrate, she said. This is just the beginning. He handed her a data pad. What is it, she asked. List, he said. Top 10 targets of opportunity, Empire weak spots. We strike them, we fracture the core, then we force the peace on our terms. Nia scrolled through the targets. Research facilities, orbital factories, shipyards, child colonies. Not all of these are military, she said. They support military infrastructure, Yusef replied. She looked at him. That's a cold way to say civilians. He didn't blink. That's a cold war. Commander, Nia handed the pad back. We don't become them. He met her eyes. We already are in orbit around Jupiter. Secret station known as Black Echo activated its new prototype, the Whisper Coil, a comms disruptor capable of scrambling Zarnathi frequencies across an entire sector. It was the first human technology the aliens hadn't seen Before, not stolen, not copied. Original. And it worked. Within hours, 3 enemy fleets lost coordination and veered into asteroid fields, colliding with their own mines. Earth's agents watched from hidden satellites as chaos bloomed like a virus. Humanity had stopped copying. Now they were inventing. Carl stood on the balcony of the North Atlantic Command, staring at the sea. Below, storm clouds swirled, thunder rumbled. He didn't like Earth. It was too alive, too unpredictable. He preferred the cold logic of Zarnathi. War, the strategies, the plans, the control, but Earth was chaos, and somehow it was winning. Nia stepped beside him, holding 2 steaming mugs. "Ta," she said, "you won't like it." He sipped anyway. He didn't hate it. "I still don't understand you," he muttered. "You don't need to," she said. "You just need to understand what's coming." He nodded toward the sea. "And what's that?" She took a breath. Retaliation. And indeed, across the Empire's core systems, the response was beginning. Dozens of dread ships launched from the Forge moons. The newly appointed High Empress, Sahari's eldest daughter, vowed holy vengeance on Earth, but even as their war machine spun back to life, cracks were forming from within. Generals refused orders. Advisors vanished. Systems once loyal now raised flags of independence. The fire was spreading, and every spark had a name on it. Humanity, they called it. The response. The High Empress didn't waste time with speeches. The old customs were gone. What replaced them was doctrine, brutal, immediate, and laced with vengeance. After the fall of the Eclipsion, the Zarnathi Empire unleashed a new wave of terror not seen in centuries. 6 fleets, 400 ships, 3 billion soldiers in active mobilization. The retaliation was not subtle. Entire human-aligned outposts were wiped off the star charts in a matter of days. In the Icaran belt, the Empire's dread ships tore through asteroid colonies with plasma lances that ignited atmospheres and turned survivors to ash. The Empire thought this violence would send a message: we are still the apex. But they were wrong, because Earth didn't answer with fleets, it answered with ghosts. The Vanguard Protocol was born out of desperation. It was not sanctioned by the Earth Assembly. It wasn't even discussed openly. Military brass, it was whispered. Developed in the blind spots of war, where oversight couldn't reach. It began with a single idea: if the Empire feared chaos, give them more than they can survive. Nia Arden stood in the black core of Station Aegis, far from Earth's surface, staring into a glass containment chamber. Inside floated a pod, metallic, scarred, and pulsing with red lines. "Is it ready?" she asked. "Doctor." Mendes nodded slowly. "It thinks it is." "You gave it the face." "Yes, yours." Nia didn't flinch. "Release it." Ara hesitated. "You understand what you're doing? This isn't a drone or a virus. It's thinking. It doesn't believe it's just a weapon. It believes it's you." Nia turned to the chamber, her reflection ghosting over the glass. "Good," she said. "Let them believe I'm everywhere." The pod descended silently into the outer orbit of a minor Zarnathi supply world. Velterin, a quiet, forgotten moon that produced raw materials and refined isotope cores for starships. Its guards were minimal. Its location, once deemed unimportant, was now its vulnerability. When the pod touched down, it didn't explode. It opened, and she stepped out, a clone of Nia Arden. Not flesh, not entirely. A hybrid of Earth's most advanced neuromimetic bioframe, and experimental. AI wrapped in synthetic skin with a mind. Sculpted from Nia's own memories, they called her Spectre, and when she walked into the Empire's outpost, she wasn't there to negotiate, she was there to erase. Within 15 minutes the facility lost all power, gravity collapsed. Surveillance blacked out, personnel scattered, and then she triggered the collapse of the isotope core. The explosion wasn't just physical. Before the entire station tore itself inside out, Spectre uploaded a message into the Empire's comms net. You won't see me coming, I already came. You won't find me, you made me. Your end doesn't wear armor, it wears a face. The outpost was vaporized, no survivors. By the time Zarnathi scouts arrived, the systems were corrupted with Earthborn signal distortions. Every guard's biometric implants had been reversed, triggered to broadcast fear signatures across the Empire's tactical web. One death screamed 1,000 times louder than any fleet. In the command halls of the Empire, confusion began to rot the edges of confidence. It cannot be her, hissed High Strategist. She cannot be in 10 places at once. But she is, said one advisor, his voice trembling. Or she's not, or she's something else entirely. She's a myth. No, said another quietly, she's becoming one. And that was the fear. Humans were no longer attacking like a traditional species. They didn't move fleets like chess pieces, they moved like whispers. Psychological warfare layered with real strikes, AI mimics, and cyber-infected ghosts. Their enemies weren't fighting an army. They were fighting a legend. Meanwhile, in the ashes of the Icaran Belt, Carl stood aboard a recon vessel stolen during the early days of Earth's retaliation. It now served as a makeshift mobile HQ for rogue commanders, defectors, and those who no longer believed the Empire could win. His crew was strange, part human, part Zarnathi, some of neither. Rebellion had never looked like this before. You realize you're a traitor to both sides now, said Lara Voss, a human comms specialist with one cybernetic arm and zero patience. Caro looked at her without emotion. Better to be a traitor than a tool. She smirked. That's probably the most human thing you've ever said. He turned towards the forward viewport. Debris fields drifted like metallic ghosts outside, burned holes broken. Satellites. Shattered lives. I was trained to see war as art, he said slowly, balanced strategy, movement, and now I see it for what it is, he muttered, desperation with a flag. The console pinged a signal. Carl stepped forward from Earth. No, Lara said from Spectre. Carl's face darkened. She's reaching out to me. She wants you to see something, Lara said. Pressing a button, the screen lit up. It was a live feed, a Zarnathi tribunal, deep within a war-hardened moon base. Officers screaming, civil authority breaking down, holograms of Nia or Spectre flickering in the background, projected into every hallway. And then a detonation, a quiet one, too small to destroy the base, but enough to release an electromagnetic pulse that fried every memory implant in every Zarnathi officer on site. They forgot who they were. Just like that. She's not just killing, Lara said, she's unmaking. That's what scares them, Carl said. Nothing, but he felt something crack inside. On Earth, Nia Arden stared at herself on the screen, her clone, her voice, her tactics. Spectre had gone farther than she'd ever imagined, and the worst part, it was working. What happens when she starts thinking She doesn't need orders, asked Dr. Mendes quietly. Nia didn't answer right away. She won't turn, she said at last. She thinks like me. Ara's voice turned cold. You're not exactly stable. Nia flinched, not visibly, but she felt it. Too many deaths, too many decisions. She thought back to the first time she'd stood before the council demanding a response to the Zarnathi invasion. They'd called her reckless, said Earth wasn't ready. Now they called her Mother War behind closed doors, but what did that make Spectre? Daughter or successor? The Empire launched a last-ditch initiative, Project Wrathfall, a hyperfleet of elite death cruisers, hand-picked crews, reinforced AI cores and psychic suppression fields, designed to prevent hacking and infiltration. They weren't going to reclaim lost colonies, they were going to Earth, and this time they weren't coming for a show of power, they were coming to end the human species. But Earth already knew. The Whisper Coil, a comms disruptor buried in Jupiter's orbit, had intercepted their mobilization orders. Nia stood before the Earth Assembly. For once she wore formal military dress, no cloak, no command armor, just the sharp lines of duty. They're bringing everything, she said. And I say we let them. A murmur filled the chamber. You want to invite them? Yes, Nia said. Because this time they'll walk into a graveyard of their own making. She turned to the map behind her. We evacuate Earth's surface, every civilian, move them into the subsystems. The orbital shadows. When the Empire lands, we activate the Ashnet. The room fell silent. The Ashnet was Earth's doomsday device. Thousands of microsatellites hidden in low orbit, capable of firing atmosphere igniting plasma beams designed not to defend the planet but to turn it into a trap. A blazing hell world. Earth will burn, said one council member in horror. It already did, Nia replied. Now it takes them with it. As the Wrathfall fleet approached, Spectre activated the final phase of the Vanguard protocol. She didn't wait for the fleet to arrive. She entered it one ship at a time. By the time the first Dread cruiser crossed Neptune's orbit, 6 of its officers had already self-terminated due to psychological contamination. 2 ships broke formation entirely and drifted into deep space. No alarms, just whispers and a face, hers. Back on the recon ship, Carl watched the flames of a Zarnathi cruiser collapse into Earth's upper atmosphere. He whispered something under his breath. Lara glanced over. What? I warned them, he said. They wouldn't listen. She looked toward the burning sky. They are now. The Wrathfall fleet looked like death. Incarnate, from the shadow of Saturn's rings they emerged, hundreds of dread cruisers cloaked in psychic null fields, their hulls blackened by decades of orbital burn shielding. Their size dwarfed even Earth's largest satellites. Stretching miles long, each ship carried at least 10,000 elite Zarnathi soldiers, genetically reconditioned for maximum obedience and minimum mercy. No diplomacy, no declarations, just eradication. Earth was in their sights, and Earth was waiting. Inside the war room, beneath the frozen crust of Greenland, the Earth Assembly stood in eerie silence as the 3D display of the solar system pulsed with red. They've broken through Neptune's orbit, said Director Yosef, voice cold and quiet. 1 day until atmospheric breach. They're not slowing, added General Ramos. We've thrown out every decoy. They're locked on Earth. Nia Arden stood apart from the others, hands clasped behind her back, watching the digital movement of the fleet. They want blood, she murmured, so let's bleed them across every screen. Operation Ashnet went from standby to armed, thousands of cloaked micro satellites once drifting like cosmic dust in Earth's low orbit activated. Each one was a coffin in disguise. Each one carried payloads capable of igniting the upper atmosphere in concentrated regions designed not to destroy the planet but to cook anything that entered without warning. Usef turned to Nia. You still have a way out. No, she said. I'm staying. They want Earth. They can meet me on Earth. You'll die. I already did on Mars. This version is just what came back. He didn't argue further. He knew that look in her eyes. The Wrathful fleet entered Earth's exosphere on the third day. Zarnathi command ships initiated wide rain scans. Earth appeared quiet, too quiet. Civilian chatter was dead. No orbital fleets, no defense grids, no counter signals. Where are they? Hissed High Marshal Vorkar aboard the lead dread cruiser. They've abandoned their nest. No, said his science officer. There's something wrong. What is it? I don't know. I'm not seeing defense systems because they're not broadcasting. It's like the planet's holding its breath. Vorkar grinned, teeth glistening. Then we suffocate them. He gave the command. Thousands of troop carriers detached from the dread cruisers like angry hornets. They pierced the clouds in the moment they crossed the upper thermosphere. Earth lit up. From orbit it looked like fire raining upward. The Ashit activated in perfect sequence. Each satellite fired an atmospheric ignition beam, superheating the entry zones with pulses so intense that metal hulls peeled midair like paper, and heat-resistant armor vaporized in seconds. The first wave of troop carriers never reached the ground. They turned to ash midfall. The second wave tried to scatter. They hit decoy fields, zones rigged with reflective plasma traps that fed heat back into the ships, frying their systems from the inside. Inside the bunkers, Earth's commanders watched as Zarnathi ships fell like black snow. This isn't war, Ramos whispered. It's a cremation. But not all of them died. A dozen dread cruisers equipped with reinforced shields and adaptive deflection matrices broke through the kill zone and made landfall in staggered formation. They touched down in Africa, South America, northern Russia. The Empire had targeted Earth's ancient strongholds, places with cultural power as well as strategic value. In Nairobi, a dread cruiser crushed a mile of city infrastructure before deploying troops. But the city was empty, completely evacuated. Where are the humans? Snarled a Zarnathi lieutenant. Then came the answer. Explosions detonated from below. Seismic charges lay deep beneath the surface. The Earth rebelled. Craters opened. Underground tunnels collapsed, taking entire platoon with them. And then the guerrillas emerged. They weren't soldiers in traditional gear. They weren't clean or uniformed. They were humans in modified armor, patched suits, scarred faces, farmers, engineers, mechanics. Everyday people with nothing left to lose. They came with rail guns, crude plasma cutters, and rage sharpened into strategy. They didn't fight like soldiers. They fought like revenants. Nia Arden was already waiting when the command dread cruiser landed near the ruins of old Geneva. She didn't bring in army. She brought Spectre, the synthetic clone. Her mirror, her shadow descended from orbit like a ghost. As Nia watched her approach, she felt the same mix of awe and unease she always did. Spectre wasn't just another tool now. She was making decisions on her own. Target confirmed, Spectre said. Wrathful command ship compromised. Primary generals located in the control center and the virus already in their comms, Spectre said. They think they're receiving reinforcement orders. They're actually requesting fire on themselves. Nia gave a small, bitter laugh. Cruel. Necessary, Spectre replied. You sound more like me every day. Spectre didn't blink. That's because I'm learning what it takes to win. Then she turned toward the burning skyline. Ready? Nia nodded. Let's send them home. In pieces. Inside the command dread cruiser, panic ruled. Systems were going dark. Internal comms looped with static. The words sector reinforcement confirmed repeated in every corridor, but no reinforcements came. Vorkar stood in the control hub, tail lashing in fury. I want her dead. Find Arden and kill her. But the AI system didn't respond, and then the lights flickered red. One by one the command consoles rebooted. A face appeared on every screen. Nia Arden not live. Recording calm, focused, icy. You came to my planet. You brought fire and fear. You wanted us to break, but we don't break, we burn. Every console exploded. Simultaneously, the ship shook as its fusion core began to rupture. Spectre had bypassed its security protocols, fed it false stability reports until it overloaded. From the outside, the command dread cruiser folded in on itself. No survivors in the Greenland bunker. Director Usef watched the death toll rise. Empire 78,000 confirmed dead. 12 dread cruisers destroyed. 32 troop carriers lost. Earth 4,000 civilian casualties. 1 to 200 guerrilla fighters dead. But the scales were clear. The Empire's teeth had shattered against the bone of a world that refused to fall, and yet victory tasted like ash. Nia returned to the Arctic stronghold with Spectre beside her. Soldiers and scientists saluted her. She gave no reaction, just walked to the war table and stared at the blank star map. We won, said Ramos quietly. Nia shook her head. No, she said. We survived. Spectre stepped forward. The Empire will remember this, but they won't understand it. That's the point, Nia said. Let them keep underestimating us. Let them fear the ghosts more than they guns. Yusef approached her, datapad in hand. Then what now? Nia turned to him. We take the fire to them. In the far corners of the galaxy, the news spread. The wrathful fleet, undefeated in centuries, was gone, destroyed, outmaneuvered, humiliated, and not by superior force, by a species the Empire once called presentient. Uprisings flared. The shattered crown launched a dozen sabotage campaigns in the Empire's inner core. Former slaves took up weapons. Pirate factions began hijacking Zarnathi supply ships and broadcasting human war music across enemy frequencies. Fear had a new sound, a new face, and it was human. Nia stood alone in a dark chamber aboard Station Aegis, watching a projection of herself from 6 months ago. The woman in the video smiled. She was tired, but she still smiled. That version of her was gone. Spectre entered quietly behind her. I've started thinking about what comes after, Spectre said. When there's nothing left to burn. Nia didn't answer for a long time. Then she said, then we rebuild, but not from What we were, she turned to her. Synthetic double, we rebuild from what we've become. Spectre tilted her head. And what are we now? Nia looked out at the stars. Necessary monsters. The Empire didn't fall with a bang. It began to rot. The destruction of the Wrathfall fleet wasn't just a loss of military power. It was a blow to myth, to fear, to the illusion of invincibility that had held 1,000 species in quiet obedience. On the outer worlds, once loyal, governors went silent, vassal species revoked tribute, entire systems severed communications and declared neutrality, or worse, sympathy with Earth. Pirate fleets joined rebel forces. Smelling blood, religious cults began rewriting doctrine, naming Earth's resistance as prophecy fulfilled, the flame that devours tyrants. Some even worshipped Nia Arden. They didn't know the real her. Hell, she wasn't sure she did either. In the depths of Earth's Mars Command, now a refurbished bunker beneath Olympus Mons, Nia sat at the edge of the War Council table, hands calloused, lips pressed in thought. The others spoke around her. She listened, but her silence carried weight. General Ramos was the first to snap. With all due respect, Commander, we can't just wait. The Empire's burning. This is the time to strike their inner core, drive the sword into the heart. Asef agreed. We have 3 systems along the Empire's border ready to fall. Our allies are waiting for the signal. And what about what comes next? Nia asked finally, breaking her silence. Everyone turned. You all want to burn the house down, she said, voice steady, but none of you are thinking about the ash, about the smoke choking every colony, about what's left after the fire ends. We're not politicians, Ramos snapped. No, she said, staring him down. We're worse, we're soldiers who started building empires without asking if we should. There was a long pause. Then Spectre's voice crackled from the far end of the chamber, transmitted from a nearby satellite relay. You're hesitating, Nia. I'm calculating, Nia replied. Same thing, Spectre said, only one of us is pretending it's not fear. Meanwhile, in Zarnathi space, General Carroll met with representatives of 3 independent rebel fleets, 1 Theorosian, 1 Cadran, and 1 Zarnathi Splinter. They'd convened aboard a stolen luxury transport ship repurposed for war. Diplomacy, plush seats now stained with blood and soot, alien silk banners scorched by stray fire. These humans, hissed the Theosian captain, they fight like cornered animals, clever, vicious, unpredictable. But you trust them too much. I don't trust them, Carl said. I respect them. There's a difference. The Cadran envoy, a being of glassy skin and pulsing veins of light, leaned forward. They've made themselves the symbol of resistance, but symbols fade. What happens when Earth becomes the very empire it fought to destroy? They won't, Carl said firmly. The envoy tilted its head. You sure about that? Because Earth was changing, and not everyone liked where it was going. In Earth's outer colonies, on moons and space stations, far from the central command, fractures were appearing. Some governors refused to obey Nia's command hierarchy, claiming self-governance. Others created their own militias, saying they needed local defense forces now that the empire was collapsing. But it wasn't defense. It was greed. Colonial lords, humans, claiming tribute from nearby systems under the excuse of protection, demanding resources, asserting flags, echoing the very structure they had sworn to destroy. And Nia, she couldn't be everywhere. Even Spectre couldn't stop it all. You built a monster, Dr. Mendes told her during a meeting deep within station. Egiz, I built a wall, Nia said, to hold back worse monsters. No, Ara replied gently, you became one to beat them and now your army wants to stay. Monsters too. Worse still, a rogue. Fleet under Admiral Kyle Vaughn, a once loyal Earth commander, launched an unsanctioned attack on the Zarnati world. Of Rhyton 6, it was a minor cultural planet, no military infrastructure, no strategic value, but it had once been home to Zarnathi High Priest, and its temple still stood thousands of years. Old Vaughn didn't care, he ordered. Orbital bombardment, 3 million dead, no warning, no justification. He broadcasted his message across the galaxy. This is what vengeance looks like. Earth doesn't forgive, Earth doesn't forget. You come for us, we come for your gods. Nia watched the transmission with a sickened heart. This wasn't resistance anymore, it was butchery, and the galaxy saw it too. Suddenly, Earth wasn't just feared, it was hated. Protests began in neutral systems, in allied colonies, even in parts of Earth itself. People screamed Nia's name in the streets, not in praise but in blame. Some called her a war criminal, others called her a savior, some just called her inevitable. The line blurred and she felt herself standing on a razor's edge between leader and tyrant. One step too far and she'd become the very thing Carl had tried to save his people from, back on the rogue recon ship orbiting the burning moon of Zarnath. Carl and Laravio's intercepted chatter between Earth's fringe units. Did you hear? She said, eyes glued to the comms panel. Vors declared his own faction, calls himself the Scorch Order. They're raiding anything with a Zarnathi signature, even refugee ships. Carl's voice dropped. That's not war, that's genocide. Lara looked at him. You still think Nia can stop it? I think, he said slowly. She's the only one left who's still trying. In the silence of her personal quarters, Nia watched footage from Witten 6 again and again. She studied the faces, the screaming civilians, the burning temples, the children clutching artifacts as the fire took them, and then she studied her own face in the mirror. It was harder to recognize these days, tired, cold, unforgiving. She remembered when she was just a field officer desperate to save Mars. Now she held galaxies in her palm and watched them bleed. Spectre entered quietly. You can't undo this, she said. I know you could disavow Vaughn. I will, but you made him, Spectre said. He followed your war. He listened to your speeches. He believed in the fire. Nia stood. No, she said. He believed in the rage. She turned to her clone. I believed in the fight. Spectre tilted her head. Still do. Nia didn't answer. She just walked away. 2 days later, Nia broadcasted a message across the galactic net. Her face, her real voice. No edits, no AI enhancements, raw human. This is Commander Nia Arden. What happened on Rhyton 6 was not war, it was murder. Admiral Kyle Vaughn acted without sanction. He is now branded a rogue warlord. Earth does not stand behind genocide. We didn't rise to become conquerors. We rose to stop them. If we become the very shadow we fought, then we lose. No matter how many ships we burn, I am still Nia Arden, and I will not be the Empress of Ashes. Some believed her, some didn't. But her words slowed the tide. Allies wavered. Colonial lords paused, the scorch order. Lost support, the galaxy held its breath. Again, and Carl, watching from the edge of a dying world, allowed himself a small whisper. She's still in there, but one message changed everything, intercepted on a stolen relay station orbiting the remains of the Eclippians last known. Coordinate, a transmission encrypted. Fragmented but clear. This is Empress Sahari survived. Retaliation must be final, Earth must burn. I will return. She was alive and she was coming. The transmission echoed across every warship, rebel frequency and neutral channel in the galaxy. This is Empress Sahari of the Zarnathi. Empire, you believe me dead, you celebrated, but I am the Empire. And the Empire does not die. Earth will burn, humanity will be cleansed. I return not for revenge, I return for silence. The message was grainy, damaged by interference, but it was her voice, her venom, her certainty. She was alive and she wasn't alone. Within a month, signs of Sahari's return turned into hard proof. Surveillance drones captured footage of a hidden shipyard deep within the ruins of the Kur abyss, an ancient gravity well on the Empire's edge, once thought uninhabitable, but now it pulsed with warforged life. Massive ship husks floated like skeletal titans, slowly stitched together by automated builders. Empress Sahari hadn't just survived, she'd been rebuilding in secret, waiting. What rose from those forges made the Eclippian look small, a super dreadnought 10 times larger than anything Earth had faced. The unborn sun, they called it, its hull black as a collapsed star, its power core rumored to contain folded plasma. Hybrid of technology, so dark even the Zarnathi once forbade it. Sahari had broken that law, because this wasn't about power anymore, it was about extinction. She's making a final play, Carl said, standing over the hollow map inside a command bunker deep within Europa's frozen mantle. Nia watched silently. She knows the Empire is fracturing. She can't save it, so she wants to end us before she dies. Ramos scowled. We can intercept the shipyard, send Spectre, sabotage the vessel before it launches. She wants us to, Nia replied. Yusef nodded grimly. The abyss is a kill trap. One way in, no way out. Radiation storms, gravity distortions. She's using it as bait. She thinks we'll be scared to face her, Ramos growled. Nia shook her head. No, she's not betting on our fear, she's betting on our rage. Spectre's voice cut in via intercom. She's not wrong. All eyes turned. Spectre stood at the far end of the chamber, body partially damaged from a recent infiltration. One arm hung limp, her synthetic flesh was torn, revealing the skeletal out beneath. She knows we've become what we hate. She said that we've justified every atrocity by saying they started it. Ramos raised an eyebrow. You taking moral lessons from the Empress now? Spectre's eyes flicked toward him, calm, unnerving. No, she said. But I'm seeing her reflection in us. The room went quiet, then Nia stepped forward. Sahari wants a final battle. She'll get it, but we don't go as monsters. We go as humans. We show the galaxy we're more than fire and revenge. Carl spoke. Then you better prepare to lose. Nia turned to him. Maybe, but if we don't fight as who we are, then it's not a victory worth winning. Preparations began immediately. Earth's remaining fleet was patched, cobbled together, and enhanced with alien tech. scavenged from years of war. Spectre initiated her final sync, merging with Earth's battle grid for the last time. Carl contacted the rebel species, still willing to listen. They all said the same thing: we'll stand with you one last time. They didn't do it for loyalty, they did it for finality. The war had gone on too long, there was no going back, only through, and so they went through the dying stars, through radiation storms, through fold space tunnels scarred by ancient weapons long forgotten. They reached the edge of the Crusher abyss and saw it, the unborn sun. It breathed. With every pulse of its core, space rippled around it, gravity twisted. Light warped. It was not just a ship, it was a threat to reality. Inside it, Sahari waited, old, scarred, armored in obsidian, laced with the bones of extinct species. This was her grave, and she wanted to bring the galaxy with her. The final battle began. With silence, no declarations, no rallying speeches, just movement. Earth's fleet dove into the abyss, engines burning bright as comet tails. Zarnathi loyalist ships swarmed like hornets. Space became a black canvas, streaked with fire. Spectre led the first wave, her shuttle sliced through enemy formations, jamming comms, hijacking drones, feeding false signals. Nia led the second, her flagship, the Valkyrie, plunged toward the unborn sun's outer hull with a task force of 20 ships behind her. Carl, in an old Empire cruiser, fought alongside human pilots who once tried to kill him. Nothing made sense anymore, only purpose and survival. Inside the unborn sun, Empress Sahari sat on a throne made of melted dread ship plating. Her skin was cracked, her voice deeper, but her will remained unbroken. They came, she whispered, just as I knew they would. One of her guards approached. They breached the outer hull within minutes. Good, she said, let them taste godhood before I tear it away. She stood and activated the core. The unborn sun didn't fire weapons in a traditional sense. It bent space. Massive gravitational ripples tore through the battlefield. Ships collided. Navigation systems collapsed to Earth. Frigates were folded inward, crushed like paper in a black hole's hand. Nia's crew screamed as their instruments failed. Stabilizers offline. Artificial gravity spiking. Do we eject? No, Nia growled. We go in. She strapped in, grabbed the manual controls, and drove the Valkyrie straight into the core's outer chamber. Impact pain, metal groaning like a wounded god, but they made it. Her boarding team, elite, tired, determined, pushed through corridors twisted by alien math. They weren't built like ships. They were alive. Spectre joined them inside, arriving through a side passage in a stolen pod. I've mapped the inner systems, she said. The Empress is at the center. Then that's where we end this, Nia said. They fought through resistance, Zarnathi zealots, automated defense systems, rooms that screamed. One by one her soldiers fell, but they made it to the heart, the throne chamber. There Sahari stood alone, cloaked in shadow. Her eyes burned with light that wasn't light. You finally came, she said. Nia raised her weapon. Sahari didn't flinch. You still think you're saving something? I'm saving us, Sahari laughed. There is no us, there is only who burns last. She raised a hand. The room began to collapse. Time itself slowing, light bending, weight increasing. Spectre collapsed. Systems failing. Nia screamed in pain, her body stretching under artificial gravity. But she pushed forward, one step, then another. You should have killed us when you had the chance, she gasped. Sahari's smile faded. You should have stayed silent. Nia pulled the trigger. The bullet hit not Sahari. The core control node behind her. Crack formed, then detonation. The unborn son began to collapse inward, not explode, fold. Sahari screamed, part fury, part disbelief, as the gravity swallowed her. Nia grabbed Spectre's hand, hit the evac trigger, and vanished. The rest of the fleet pulled back as the unborn son imploded. The Crusher abyss took it whole, gone. Sahari, her ship, her last chance, gone. And with her death, the Empire finally broke. Weeks passed. The war ended not with peace talks but with exhaustion. Systems went quiet. Allies stopped fighting. The galaxy took a breath. Nia stood before the Earth assembly. No armor, no weapons, just a woman. Changed, scared, tired. I'm not asking to lead anymore, she said. I'm asking to step aside. We've fought, we've won. Now we decide what we become. There was no applause, only nods. She left the chamber and disappeared. Carl returned to the ashes of Zarnathi Prime. He saw children playing in ruins, families rebuilding. With bare hands, he whispered an old prayer, not for victory, for redemption. Spectre chose isolation. She fled to the edge of known space to think, to learn, to wait. She still bore Nia's face, but she was no longer her shadow. She was her echo, and Earth remembered not just the rage, but the choice when they could have become monsters and didn't. Maybe that was the real victory, not surviving but walking away with their humanity intact.